and welcome to our So You Want to Work in Theater and Entertainment program. My name is Gary Morris, and I'm the Director of Career Services here at SUNY Oswego. This industry has, as you know, been particularly impacted by the pandemic, so we needed to bring three extremely accomplished alumni to provide their perspective on what it's like to work in this industry today. If you're wondering what ESPN and ABC Sports and royal weddings and HBO and the NBA and Hamilton and presidential debates and of course the Indy 500 have in common, you have come to the right place tonight. A couple of housekeeping items just to keep us on track. I'll manually admit our guests as they enter the meeting this evening, and with such crazy schedules, we'll probably have a few people coming in a little bit late. To make things manageable, please keep your microphone on mute. However, we encourage all of you to ask any question via the chat box. Stephanie and I are going to be closely monitoring to get your questions to our presenters in a timely fashion. Finally, just so you know, we're recording this session tonight, and we'll make it available for anybody who wasn't able to make it. So without delay, I'd like to turn this over to Stephanie Lamb, the Senior Associate Director of our Alumni Association, and also a superstar, not just for her department, but also for our college in general. So thank you, Stephanie, for all the work you do to make these events happen. So at this point, she has the honor of introducing our amazing alumni. So Stephanie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Gary. Yes, I do have great honor of introducing our three alumni here with us tonight. And I'll just start off by thanking all three of you again for being here and sharing your stories and connecting with our students. I think you're definitely a light in what is a challenging time for our students, and it's very encouraging for them to be able to connect with you. So thank you. I'll go ahead and I'll introduce each of you, and I'll do alphabetical order. So I'll start with Gabriel Almanzar. Gabriel is currently a supervising art director for CBS News and has been art director since 2009. He graduated from SUNY Oswego in 2005, where he earned his Bachelor of Fine Arts degree, majoring in graphic arts and minoring in Spanish. Gabriel also currently serves on the SUNY Oswego School of Communication, Media, and Arts Advisory Board. During his time at CBS News, Gabriel has worked on events such as presidential elections and debates, papal coverage, the royal wedding, and a variety of major breaking news coverage. He is also part of the CBS Sports design team, developing layouts for Thursday Night Football, Super Bowl 53 and 50, I believe, if I have that correct, for which he received a Sports Emmy Award in 2016 for Best Technical Remote by the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. Prior to joining CBS in 2007, Gabriel was a graphics production coordinator at ESPN and ABC Sports. With his design training and passion for television, Gabriel quickly found himself managing vendor contracts as well as the influx of weekly graphics production. Gabriel resides in New Rochelle, with his wife and fellow Oswego alum, Ada, and their two children. Welcome, Gabriel. Thank you. And next we have Denise Grillo. Denise graduated from SUNY Oswego in 1984 with her bachelor's degree in technical theater and has worked as production properties coordinator for almost 30 years. Denise began her career in New York City, working off-Broadway at Playwrights Horizons, Manhattan Theater Club, and the Public Theater. After spending years honing her craft, she transitioned to Broadway full-time, becoming a member of the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. Denise has been employed by some of the most respected companies in New York City, including Walt Disney Theatrical, Lincoln Center Theater, and the Roundabout Theater Company. As one of New York's most sought-after production prop supervisors, Denise works side by side with some of the most prestigious scenic designers in the business, including David Corrins, Christina Jones, John Lee Beatty, and David Rockwell. In addition, Denise has worked with some of today's most illustrious writers, directors, musicians, and actors currently working the boards, a list that includes Pulitzer, Tony, Grammy, Emmy, and Oscar winners. A few of the shows she's worked on over the years, which have been awarded the Tony or nominated for Best Scene Design, include Once on This Island, Dinner at 8, 9, Ada, She Loves Me, and the smash hit Hamilton, for which she's built a total of 7 companies here in the U.S. and around the world. Before the pandemic shut down Broadway, Denise had been working on Mrs. Doubtfire, the musical, whose return is eagerly anticipated once Broadway reopens. In an effort to use the current unplanned time off productively, Denise, along with a partner, are working on launching Everything Props LLC, a prop rental house that will offer discount rental rates to nonprofit and student productions in theater, film, television, and media arts as a way of helping to nurture fledgling artists. Welcome, Denise. Thanks for being here. And last but certainly not least, we have Dave Saretsky. Dave graduated from SUNY Oswego in 1995 with a bachelor's in broadcasting and communications. And he is currently technical director for Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, Full Frontal with Samantha Bee, Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, Desus and Mero, the Drew Barrymore Show, Showtime Boxing, as well as all major sports, NBA, NFL, NHL, US Open Tennis, and the Masters Golf. Dave is a 4-time Emmy winner, 2 of those for sports and 2 for primetime. He has also been recognized with 2 Peabody Awards. So thank you, Dave, also for being here. And again, my honor to have you all here, and I will pass it back over to Gary.
So let's see. So one of the most challenging or exciting parts of my career thus far, it's just been the variety of all the different clients I've been lucky enough to work for. Having started over 20 years ago working, as a production assistant and working my way up to my role as a technical director, it's been really just the variety of all the clients that I have, the travel I'm able to do, and that's really been, it's just great. It's just something new every day. Just, you never know. Like I can work 7 days a week and have 7 different clients, and I enjoy the variety mostly more than anything else. If there's something else, I'm sorry if I fully answered that. If you had something else you wanted me to mention. Right. Well, I mean, just kind of getting to the point where I'm at now was certainly a challenge. Working my way up, deciding where my niche was. Because at Oswego, I knew I wanted to be in TV. I didn't know to what extent. Originally, I thought I was going to be a producer, but, I found my way towards the technical end of things. And, it was just kind of challenging getting to this point. But it's been great. I mean, obviously challenging on a day-to-day basis, certain shows, certain productions, like, doing NFL games or, big events, certainly provide a lot of challenge on a daily basis. Yeah.
For me, I share Dave's sentiment in that you're never doing the same thing twice. My job is a real learning experience every time I do it. Even if it's just because you're handling a set that's in a different period or something that you've never done before, the job allows you to immerse yourself and just always be learning and absorbing. And it allows you to use what you've previously learned, sometimes in new ways. So I really I like the challenge of always basically being challenged. I'm never bored. It never feels like I'm doing the same thing twice, except maybe when I'm unloading trucks. That 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 feels a little bit like I've done this before. But when when you're setting up a whole new show and you're having things built and you're just bringing the whole show together, it's always a challenge. And so I like that part of it. So challenges, I mean, I've had so many, I wouldn't even know where to start with that question. The business we've chosen to be in is, a lot of people come to you and they say, oh my God, your job's so glamorous, and it's like, no, my job is, the last thing this job is glamorous. So if you're thinking of getting into this because you're going to be hanging out with celebrities, you're not. For the most part, you're just going to be working behind the scenes supporting them. And, you have to be there to, really on a whim, you have to be able to turn on a dime. And so I would say that that's pretty challenging, because you just never know what somebody's going to ask for.
So for me, I would say, the deadlines that come with live television have been a challenge throughout my career. When you're on. Every second counts. The long hours you have to put in working in TV. I'm sure David knows about this, but long hours are almost a definite, because some things, for example, currently working on the election coverage, we don't know how long we're going to be in the studio for that night. It's that kind of production. I think a challenge for me personally also, after graduating, was basically a little bit of a learning curve. I was not a broadcast major. I didn't really know I was going to get into television, kind of stumbled upon it, and it was a little bit of a learning curve, but I think it was well worth it, because what's gratifying for me now at this point in my career is just all the different major events with millions of viewers that I've been fortunate enough to cover. So there was a learning curve. It was a challenge. The hours are long, but it's very gratifying after you've put on such huge productions. There's a sense of pride that comes with that.
Yes, I second the long hours. So I've been working already today since 6 a.m. and I have a few more hours to go. So prime example. Yeah, if you see me looking away and muting myself, that's because I'm currently working here on doing the Cal Penn show. We're just setting up for an interview, actually, with Andy Samberg. So that'll be happening at some point tonight. So if I get distracted, I apologize, and I'll still try to answer everything I can. I would say for me, certainly with the pandemic starting at first, it was just, the uncertainty of where productions were going. And, all of the shows that I work on started shooting remotely. So it was really a challenge to kind of know where they were headed and what I'd be doing. But they've all since pivoted, and they're going to start incorporating more at home. I'm actually going to be working on Sam B's show from home. So, prior to that information, those were certainly some restless nights initially.
Yeah, for me, I've been working from home since March, and a lot of it was like, does the technology exist in order to perform my job from home? Obviously, you can work on designing and things locally, but how do we communicate with the world, and How do I talk to people like David in the control room? And so that was kind of, an unknown for me. Like, how do we put on television when almost your entire staff is at home, kind of a thing? Thankfully, the technology does exist. And we're able to communicate. And I mean, there's a little bit of Zoom fatigue sometimes. I heard that's a thing now, where you're on so many Zoom calls, you feel a little tired. But it was, for me, it was a lot of the technology and how do we continue to put the production on air.
As far as challenges in the theater before COVID, the way the job has changed since I started is that props have gone from being, smaller furniture items to being really, really big, in a way that it's very hard to define now. The theater, because it's gotten so competitive, and we try to present things that are almost like the movies and TV now, and the technology that's developed since I've been doing this job. So there's a tendency now that scenery a lot of times are really big walls that are screens, and then everything that fills in around it is a prop. Props can weigh tons now. And so storing and handling them backstage in theaters that were built 100 and 120 years ago, where you just have these little wing spaces, because the buildings were designed for roll drops, it's really become a huge challenge, the engineering and the figuring out the storage space and how to maneuver things. It's a much bigger, when people hear props, they think, oh, this is a couch, and it's like that couch is automated now. So that couch is built from scratch, and it works with the automation in the stage deck. So I would say that's the biggest challenge we're dealing with now. You do.
I mean, for me, I think I took the question. I wasn't ready to answer. I think a great factor to me landing where I am now would be knowing my worth. There comes a point in your career where you have to know your value, the value you bring to a company, and not be afraid to ask for things, and whether it's in a contract or whatever it is. But knowing your worth, I think, is important to reach high levels of, I think, any industry. Always not burning bridges, keeping good relationships throughout other networks, I would say, also helped me. I've bounced around. I've been part of ESPN, ABC, CBS Sports, CBS News, and I would say, even people at NBC, which I haven't been in, I feel like I have good relationships all around. Even though it's a big industry, it's really not. It's really small. Word gets around. So keeping good relationships, I think, is important. I don't know, again, I didn't study television at Oswego. I was more of a design and a graphic arts major, so that was always my passion, design. But keeping an open mind when you get into the field, that it might not be exactly what you studied in college, but if you're willing to learn and keep an open mind, you can definitely progress and land at higher levels in your career.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with Gabriel. It's the connections that you make are super important. at least in my case, you know, I'm completely freelance and completely reliant on the relationships that I have forged throughout the years. And you never know. I mean, this one intern that I worked with at MTV, you know, 20 years ago, whatever, he's now the director for Late Night with Seth Meyers. So, I mean, it's important to, you know, you never know. Like that intern that gets yelled at or you treat poorly, you know, he'll be your boss one day. And that is completely true. And it's just a matter of, you know, having the drive to, you know, make the connections and, you know, put in the hard work and, you know, let people know that you're willing to do what you need to do to get where you have to be. I mean, and it's just a matter of finding what you want to do. And once you have an idea, it's really, it is all about the relationship. So I agree.
And I have to say I agree with that too. I think you just have to approach a career like this as you're building. I freelance too. You know, every time after a show is built, usually it's over. You know, I mean, Hamilton's like an anomaly. So you have to, you know, you have to be really good at your craft. You have to show that you really care. You have to treat everybody that you meet with respect, and just deal with everybody in as professional a manner as you can, because you are going to run into the same people again and again. You know, you think these industries are huge. They're not. It's like small town. You know, I can walk down the sidewalk in Midtown and run into 3 people in 5 blocks, you know, maybe that I haven't even seen in 10 years. But you know everybody. And if you don't, you know someone who knows them, you know, because you end up having all these conversations about networking. You know, who do you know? How do you know this person? I got all of my jobs through recommendations. You know, one scene designer would be like, oh, you know, they'd call another one when they didn't know a good prop person, and I would just keep getting recommended. They'd be like, oh, you have to use Denise. You should, you know about Denise Grillo. And so that's how I got my jobs. So Ms. Doubtfire is designed by David Corrins, who designed Hamilton, who designed Motown. And, you know, so once I worked with David the first time, I just have always worked with him. David, you know, I'm his prop person now. And the same for a few other designers. They come to me first. I hate to turn them down. You know, if you're too busy, that's like one of the things about when your career is finally developed enough, you have to know when you're too busy, that if you take too many jobs that have overlaps, you're going to disappoint somebody. And so you have to be able to recognize when no is the least disappointment, as opposed to you taking a job that you're not going to do as well at as everybody is expecting you to do. Oh, I wasn't ready for that one at all. I worked so hard in the theater. You know, in addition to all of the classes, we would all work in the scene shop a couple of nights a week, building the scenery for the shows. And I remember, you know, that was when I started, you know, working hard. I'm a workaholic. I think you have to be a workaholic in this business. And so, you know, I think it started right in college, where, you know, that whole team building, and we would be, you know, building until 11 o'clock at night. And back when I went to college, you could still go to the bar and have a drink after 11 o'clock at night. And it was just all part of that, you know, work hard, play hard, work hard, play hard cycle, that you do. And this was
Oh,
the
yeah.
bar off campus. There was a theater bar. There was the bar that all the theater nerds hung out at. I'm sure it's long gone. But doing that was fun. It was exhilarating, and I love doing that.
Awesome.
I'd say memories with all my friends. There's too many to count. I mean, there's people that I still have relationships with, that you we're able to still connect and see each other. But it's all those memories, because it was so easy to get together, whether it's a barbecue, an intramural game, or whatever. Like Denise said, maybe we join up at a bar or something. There was a bar on campus, I believe, in the Ozone. I think they used to sell alcohol.
Yes, you are correct.
But yeah, there's just so many memories of friends, I would say.
Yeah, nice. So here's a question I know that's on everyone's mind. We're in a global pandemic, and it's been challenging for students to find traditional ways to get experience and build their skills and get out there, do networking, all those good things that come when you step into an experience, meeting people, getting references, all of that. What advice do you have for our students who seem to be kind of in this weird pause? What can they do now to elevate their brand so when things do open back up, they're farther ahead than they were when this pause started?
I would say, number one, maybe take as much advantage of the career services center, whether it's reaching out to alumni or just seeing where people are. I think the alumni office keeps track kind of a little bit of what industries some of their alums have landed in, maybe trying to build some type of connection, whether it's on LinkedIn or sending an email. Or I know I've received several emails from Oswego students during the pandemic. But another thing I would say is you probably have more free time now than you would. There's a lot of things you can't go out and do than that you could in the past. So I would say, especially for designers out there, pick up some projects that are not necessarily assigned by a teacher on your own. Try to build your skills where, like, when you do land that interview, you have something to talk about that's not necessarily a class project. Not sure what that could be. There's a million different kind of ways you can take that, whether you're a photographer, an illustrator, a graphic designer. But I would say maybe hone in on some projects that are like a little bit more personal to you, that you can be able to really elaborate on and flush out during, any downtime you might have. That's what I would suggest for sure.
Yeah. I think that was great advice.
Perfect. Do you have a question from Christian? I'm trying to paraphrase here a little bit. I think, or Christopher, he's looking at graduation and what does that transition look like from everything he's ever known to going into something he's never been to, and what that bridge looks like in terms of landing a job. Is it hard? Is it competitive? Did you have to rely on your network of people to find that position? How do you find companies? Just what does that jump look like in hindsight to all of you? What were the important aspects of that?
For me, I think you start it and you don't have nearly as good a plan as you think you should have it, because it really is just something that starts evolving based on the people you meet and the situations you become involved in. And so you have to be pretty flexible, that because you may become exposed to something that you never even considered. My degree is in technical theater and design. And I had never considered props, but it turned out that my design background worked really well, because, I didn't need the kind of direction that, maybe other people who were just technically oriented, needed. I had a really good eye and a good sense of period and everything. So, so I, as you would meet people, I would say just be ready to like make that right turn or that left turn that you weren't expecting. I think, you make that first connection and you need to be ready to evaluate, like, how am I working in this space? How am I dealing and connecting with the people in this space? And what do I find attractive and what do I not find attractive about it? Where are my strengths and weaknesses in this? And then let that inform you about where to go next. Instead of just maybe leaving it to chance, where the wind blows you, which I've seen some people do that too. And it's worked out well for some of them. But, I think that, if you really are more focused, you may get there faster.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Just thinking about my process. I started as a production assistant in the industry. So even though I had this design background, I wasn't really designing, but I jumped in. I knew TV was kind of cool. It was fun. I was young, travel, and you learn things, and then you can, like Denise said, hone in and be more focused on what you wanted to do. And I know that for me that was design. So I found the place within the industry that would allow me to do that.
No matter how long I use Zoom, I always start talking with mute on. So you've had these amazing jobs, these amazing careers, and probably it'd be hard to pick your favorite one. But maybe not hard to pick your least favorite job you've ever had. And I'm wondering what your least favorite job is, and what did you learn from that position that later really helped you out that you didn't really anticipate?
Okay. I'll confirm that that's it. I'm sorry. I'm multitasking here. I apologize. I know I heard the least favorite job here. Yeah, there's a Cal Pen. We're getting ready to do an interview. So I apologize. I'm kind of like letting Gabriel and Denise handle a lot. But the least favorite job, I mean, I could have a least favorite job, several times throughout the week, but just like I said, with the variety of projects that I work on, we all have bad days. I don't want to say, I've worked with directors that I'd prefer not to work with again. And, I don't book myself with them, after I have a bad day. But, just in general, just trying to think, one of my least favorite jobs. I mean, we all have to, like, breaking into the industry. It's it's tough. You got to do a lot of grunt work. I mean, one of my first jobs before I was really working in the MTV studio was just buying groceries and taking dub orders and all those things that, I mean, it's awful, but really it's a way to get in. And I'm sure Gabriel and Denise can attest, we've all been there, and that's part of the process of getting to where you want to be.
For me, the as a designer, I think my least favorite job was like David was kind of touching on it, the grunt work part of it. There's parts of design that are a little bit repetitive and not very creative. That can be, at the early part of my career was a lot of what I did. It was, you're the new guy on the block kind of thing. I think now, my least favorite part of the job would be when I have to travel. You know, I'm kind of a homebody. I did all my going out when I was younger. So when I have to leave the family and get on the road, whether, you know, it's for a debate, a football game, a Super Bowl, whatever, that's my least favorite part.
So my least favorite job, I mean, starting out, you have a lot of least favorite jobs because you're getting all of this grunt work. In the case of props, at least when I started out, and I don't know that the industry has changed this much, is because props is such a labor-intensive job in theater. They being producers, negotiate with you to just give you a flat fee for this unending amount of work. And so the more your skill gets developed, the more, at least for me, the more I came to resent working for no money. And when you reach that point, that's when you know it's time to bolt and go for the next step. But I have had least favorite jobs further into my career. And often that involves directors who were very difficult to work with. What happens a lot in theater is if a show isn't going well artistically, a lot of times it's like, well, we can fix it with the props. Let's change the props. And that's never a good position to be in. To have
You're the same way with graphics.
Yeah, yeah. Because you know, I mean, and this is that problem that, you know, artistic people run into. It's like, well, it can't be what I'm doing. It's got to be somebody else's problem. And in theater, you know, it's not that easy to change the set. And it's way more expensive to change like a beaded gown. But, you know, a lot of times people just think, oh, we'll just change the props. And it's like, so, you know, I'm under the gun to, you know, basically create like a whole new set of props for a new scene or something in just days. Mm-hmm. And it's really high pressure. It's really high pressure. So, you know, that, you know, whenever you get into a situation where something is not working artistically, you know, because of directorial or even writing choices, you know, we've all seen this, and they end up focusing on other things instead of fixing the problem. And so that's something, you know, you students should be aware of, that you're going to run into this in your career. And you can't say, we all know what the problem is, it's the actor, or we all know what the problem is, it's the director. You can't say that. You just have to smile and say, okay, and just take the list and, you know, figure out how quickly you can do it.
So should students spend a couple of years after graduation kind of clawing through a few of those bottom rungs, maybe not the most glorious jobs, but getting experience and meeting some people, or should they drop into a master's program? What's more valuable? Do you have an opinion either way?
For me, you know, in my field, are any of the faculty members on this? Personally, I think in my field, experience and what you know, I mean, you can definitely learn it in a master's program, but I think on-the-job experience and working on projects that are real for whatever field it is, I think can definitely net you more money in my industry, I would say. But, you know, you can also definitely go back and refine your skills. And, you know, if you don't feel like you have a good portfolio coming out, going back to school is not a bad idea either. I just think if you want to jump into the industry and start your career path as fast as possible, jumping in and maybe making no money, but starting to work on real projects is probably the way to go. Now, I kind of, believe it or not, I kind of regret now not maybe getting my master's, because I'm interested in teaching. Like one of the skills that I developed while in my industry is managing a team, and I kind of learned how to talk to people and explain things and break things down that I think can really serve me well as I get older and maybe want to take on some teaching roles. So I would have to now go and get my master's. So, I guess, you gotta weigh what it is that's important to you and what path you want to take.
Another question here, reflecting back, what do you wish you could tell your 20-year-old or 22-year-old self as a college student? I personally could write a book, so you have to kind of process that for a while.
Yeah.
And not do the Bridge Street run all the time, but sorry. Sorry.
It's okay. I was a slow starter in college. It took me my freshman and sophomore year, I wasn't as involved in theater as I wish I had been. And if I could do it again, I would instantly become more involved in extracurricular activities instead of just focusing on book learning. Because hands-on experience in this business is really, really the most important thing. So I would start sooner is my advice to my old self tells my young self it would be start sooner.
I mean, I personally, I think I'd take a few more classes, to be honest with you. I think I would, now that I'm older, I kind of know my interests and what I like and what I think I could have definitely come out of school being better at. So I would, and if I were to list those, I'd say public speaking is up there. That's something I would definitely go back and take in college. Broadcasting classes wouldn't hurt. But yeah, public speaking is one. I wish I would have taken more history classes too. Like, I don't know, something about, history. I was a big fan of Japanese art history and all that. And I think some of it translates to, thinking creatively and things like that. Maybe some creative writing classes. So, things like that, I would definitely go back.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, getting a more well-rounded course load would be helpful. I mean, for me personally, like I always knew I did want to pursue a career in TV, and I was kind of just uber focused with that. But, yeah, I mean, just taking a well-rounded variety of other classes, yeah, I wish I could have done that as well,
Yep. So you've all won insane awards from the work you've done and throughout your careers. What are you most proud of?
I mean, my work on Last Week Tonight is by far the most proud I've achieved, in this industry. Working for HBO, they're amazing. They send me out to LA last year, going to the Emmys and accepting it, in front of hundreds or a few thousand people, was amazing. I gave a speech in front of Jeff Goldblum, Norman Lear, all these celebrities. I can't believe that, I was able to get any words out, but that certainly was one of my crowning achievements. So.
How about you, Denise? As you reflect back, what are you most proud of?
Oddly enough, I'm most proud of some of my off-Broadway shows. And maybe it was because, it was such an achievement when I was younger to actually, be able to pull off a whole production without having a lot of mentorship. And some of them, just even in their simplicity, were just beautiful and inspiring. And I remember the first show I did at Playwrights that transferred to Broadway was Once on This Island, which they just did a revival of. And that's an interesting experience to be doing this long enough that some of the shows I've worked on are now coming back as revivals. I'm like, wow, okay, I'm feeling old. But I feel really proud. As a production prop person on Broadway, you actually don't get to win any awards, but I'm proud when my scene designer gets to, win the Tony, and then I get thanked, and that always makes me feel good. I feel like She Loves Me, which was a musical I did a few years ago at Roundabout, was just, it was so gorgeous by the time we were done. The amount of detail, and it just became this crazy labor of love. It was having perfume bottles sculpted, so that it all looked proper for the 1930s, and we're doing all of these test colors, and I think you can actually, if anyone's interested, I think it runs on PBS every now and then. It was recorded, and I was so proud of how stunning it looked, and I was so thrilled when David won the Tony for it. It was like, so that's the reason. There's so many things you can be proud of in this business. And I would say to the students that, that is, it's just, you're always climbing the ladder in this business. And I think that is just exhilarating. You can just keep going, and it can keep getting better. So that's something to look forward to if you hang in there.
For me, it's real easy to point to some of the higher rated programming shows that you've worked on and been a part of. But, actually during this COVID period, I've worked on a few smaller primetime specials. Some don't even go on broadcast. Some are just on the web. I remember working this on a Bravery and Hope special where we spent 7 days in one of the hospitals here in New York City. A Justice for All special where during, the social justice movements that were happening over the summer, we made a special. Like those are the ones that obviously they're recent, but they hit home as like a little bit more special projects to work on. And in this industry, there's countless small projects like that never really see the high numbers and ratings, but as far as an accomplishment and what you had to put into it, they're usually more satisfying.
Let's see. Piper has a question. Trying to put together a resume for an internship. Should it be just kind of traditional, not a lot of frills, or do you try to get creative and grab someone's attention with that?
I think it should be easy to read.
Mm-hmm.
It should be, at least for designers, it should be accompanied with some kind of a portfolio, online portfolio. I got to be able to see that you have a degree and what you've been doing, but then I want to actually see your work, and I don't want too many clicks to get there. Like I want to get there quickly, and I want to see your creativity. The resume, I just got to be able to read it. I mean, I know some designers get really fancy with their resumes and colors and this and that. As long as it's easy to read, if I can't read it,
I agree. A resume needs to just present factual, simple information. In the theater, it's about the shows you've worked on and what the position was that you held. and the director and the designer that you worked with. And, you know, if you make it too fancy, then you're taking away from the work that you've actually done. And the person who's interviewing you and trying to decide who to hire is really just interested in the work that you've done and you showing the ability. So a portfolio, like I would recommend right now that, you know, you work on trying to build your portfolios right now, you know, by, you know, taking whatever kind of, you know, side jobs you can find, or student internships that whatever you can find. And it's going to be hard right now, you know, because I mean, there are no internships available in theater. You know, hopefully in film and TV, you know, there are some there. But the fact that even if you could just find one thing while the pandemic's going on, you know, to me, that would be impressive. If you could find one thing to add to your resume, that would be a standout thing to me, because I would be like, wow, the drive that this kid had to have to, you know, to get this thing done and on their resume would be an impressive feat. So that's, you know, what I would recommend.
I'd be happy to answer the question if you want to re-ask it. I'm sorry, you know, I've just been. I'm sorry. I would say multitasking is very important in this industry. Just being able to juggle a bunch of things at once.
Yep. Yeah, we were just talking about how to stand out in your field in a sea of candidates. What can you do to kind of stand above the rest and get noticed? Whether it's a resume or an interview or a networking or.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you know, it's doing as much at school while you're there to put that on the resume to get your first interview. And then once you get your first interview that would potentially land an internship, it's really, you know, making a name for yourself that way. I did many things while on campus, the TV studio, radio, whatever I could do that, you know, I had an interest in. And I feel like that's what led to, you know, landing my first internship, and it's just standing out. Plenty of shows I've worked on, and obviously, I guess in my case, you know, I did the work, and I've seen plenty of interns that work their butts off, and, you know, people talk, and they say, that one's getting a job. That one's, you know, going to be moving up or staying with us after their internship is over. So it's, you know, at each stage, you really have to, you know, go the extra mile, you know, put out that extra effort. And I know it's cliche, but it does work. And, you know, even in these pandemic times, things are going to come back, or there's going to be a pivot with internship responsibilities. But, you know, I think it's still important to do all those things, and and that will get you, you know, in the door and into the interview. So.
And I'll say this too, speaking of internships, I think you also, if you land one, don't treat it as an internship. Treat it like it's a job, like you got the job. You know, an example for me, my first internship was at ABC Sports. It was 3 of us, and they had a production assistant opportunity after the internship. And it's funny, you know, I ended up getting it, but you know, I talked to my boss at the time, you know, what made me stand out, and it was as simple as I was the only one wearing a tie every day. It's as simple as that. You know, the other kid, you know, they were hard workers, but, you know, maybe their appearance, you know, they were maybe, you know, thought they were still kind of in college, you know, and I'm going in there with a suit and a tie, you know. I'm making no money, you know. So, you know, sometimes it's the little things.
Yep. Excellent. Okay, so I don't know if you can boil it down, but we have a lot of students on this Zoom that may want to do what all of you currently do, or at least get on that career path. We've got time to go around one more time. If you could provide our students with 1 or 2 pieces of advice or information or suggestions, what do you think is most important for them to know if they're looking at you and thinking to themselves, I want to be just like you at some point. How do I get off the dime here? What's the one or two things you would say?
I'll start real quick. One thing I would definitely do is try to find an internship, a job, a project in your field that you can show on your resume once you graduate. Keep your social medias clean. People do, once you go for an interview, they will Google you. So, be careful of what's out there. And always remember, just because it's your first job doesn't mean it's your last job. So, you don't have to be complacent or feel like you're settling and oh, how can I do this for the rest of my life? You really don't know what you're going to be doing in 25 years. So don't close any doors. There you go. That was more than two, but
no, it's perfect.
No, I completely agree with Gabriel. I mean, my first job wasn't my last job. I mean, it's doing what, as much as you can to get as much experience. I mean, obviously, with the way things are, having the background in all the new tech, I think is, super helpful as things are evolving and shows are doing, productions remotely. And I'm going to be in my, basement working on a show next week. So I think it's just as important to really stay up on all the evolving technology.
And I would pretty much just second everything Gabriel and David has said. Get the internship. I don't think it would hurt to get an internship for a semester while you're in school once the COVID has passed. Start building your network immediately, with your first internship. Have a positive attitude about everything that you're doing in the internship, and treat everybody, as your superiors, your bosses, as well as all the other interns with respect. Because, I mean, Gabriel and David, you tell me, but I know in theater, like, we always know the interns who are going to be moving forward. You always know it from, it's not only the person's talent, but it's their attitude and it's the amount of work they put in. And, we almost never miss. It's like we know that person's going someplace, and it invariably happens. And it's because their entire mannerism is, I'm gonna nail this. So I would recommend that everybody keep those things in mind.
Yeah, outstanding. Stephanie and I interact with alumni a lot, and they echo exactly what you three are saying, and that is, when things loosen up and this pandemic is over, and that's going to happen, the first thing people will ask is, what have you been up to during this pause? And you want to have an answer for that. So, yeah. Oh my gosh, Gabriel, David, Denise, this has been invaluable. And we are so grateful and appreciative of your time with us this evening. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you. Good luck to everybody.
Good luck, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Like I mentioned in the comments, please feel free. I know I've been kind of, in and out throughout this, and I apologize for not having 100% focus, but by all means, feel free to email me any other questions. If I can help out in any way, I'm happy to do so, and happy to jump on another one of these at any point.
No need to apologize. Thank you for being here. And Gabriel and Denise as well. We appreciate it. We know things are crazy, so thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Have a good evening.
All right.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good night.